to Google Analytics, to Google Plus, to all sorts of things, right? And you know why? Because they want you to use their services to do well within your own business. And if you do well with your own business, you'll go back to use more Google services. And then ultimately you'll think, I trust these guys, I'm going to buy some advertising from them. So it's all a very, very clever business idea. Okay? So that's why Google invests millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure that, for instance, Google Analytics, which is like a monitoring tool, analytics behind the scene, to monitor how well you do with your business, is so comprehensive that you can pretty much track everything you do on a smartphone or a tablet or a PC within your own business. And you don't pay for it, it's free. So that quickly means that you can actually improve your business by keeping an eye on things that are working and things that are not working. So in other words, analytics help you, just quickly for you to keep in your mind, analytics help you to improve your business as you go along with your everyday operations. By keeping a close eye into your consumer engagement throughout the platform. It can be mobile, it can be desktop, tablet, whatever it is. But throughout this circle of customer journey, we can pick up on the areas that we can improve. So in other words, business improvement through monitoring and tracking. And unless you track, it's really hard to know what's working and what's not. With traditional business, you can do that because you can just look at the customers and what they do and be like, okay, I can see why he's not finding the shampoo because we've got no idea in which aisle it is, right? Even ourselves to find it. And you know, sometimes as that switches around the products, you get lost, even though if you've been shopping in there quite a lot, you get lost because they switch around products, right? And it becomes quite hard. So as a company, you can actually check on those issues that you might have with traditional business. With the online, if you do not have analytics put in place, you can't tell. And you might be wasting lots of business, but you've got no idea where that business is going because you don't know. It's all digital. So that's why the digital world, as much as it sounds and it is exciting, it brings in lots of challenges because you've got to be really on top of the game. You've got to know what's happening. And for instance, in this case, mobile SEO, putting it simply in plain English, is about optimizing your website and the content on your website that you've got for search engines. Means making it searchable, easy to find by search engines, because search engines have got very specific set criteria when they index other sites. And if you meet those criteria, they will help you out because they will bring traffic to you. If they bring traffic to you, that means business, right? So that's why SEO matters. The next one is on-site search. It's like a very simple facility, but the on-site search or search on the application of a smartphone is quite an important component for optimizing a mobile presence. Navigation, it's absolutely essential. How many times you started using a mobile app of your choice, and because it was very, very clumsy, very hard to find your way around it, because navigation is so poor or is inexistent, it's really hard to just leave and go somewhere else. And now, with those millions of apps out there, it's a bit like websites, you know? You just delete that one and install another one. It's just easy, right? It probably takes a bit more time than it will take you to get from one website to another in desktop, but you know, you'll do it. If it's too much of a headache, you're not going to spend time, you just move to the other one. Because there's so much apps out there, you know, customers will switch from one to another in a matter of seconds. So the navigation is absolutely essential. We'll look at a few examples. Brand consistency. it's also really important. The reason for that is, when you are in your mobile sort of smartphone for your specific brand, or in desktop, you need to know that that is the brand that you've been using for a long time, right? So if you're an ASOS on smartphone application, you will know that that is the website that you've been searching in your desktop as well. So there is consistency in branding throughout different devices. And you might wonder, well, why that matters? It matters because we have got our trusts and beliefs towards different brands. And if we can't tell which is the brand that we're searching for at the moment, we might just leave out. So brand delivers that trust that we've got, which is why we use it in the first place. Mobile subdomain, again, is about creating subdomain, creating little pages of websites for the mobile phones that are normally created. Okay? But in general, there are companies that do something else. There are companies that get those desktop websites to be reduced for these smart screens. But that in general doesn't work. And the reason for it is because just squeezing the content into this little screen without redesigning it doesn't really work. Okay? Unless it's a blog, it doesn't really have much of a navigation, it's very simple. It can work. It just really can't work. It's very difficult. Right? And then in the end we'll have some summaries and conclusions. So, now, part of the mobile SEO are the spiders that evaluate whether the site is displayed well on a mobile device or not. Those spiders are codes that are sent across the web, across millions of pages on the web. They are owned by Google, they are owned by Bing, they are owned by Yahoo and the others. They're sent all over the web, and then they will find those pages that are not just optimized for mobile phone, but nowadays, in 2016, search engines are looking at the relevant content that's being presented as well. So now Google is saying to businesses, it's not enough to have your website optimized for mobile. You've got to give and provide relevant content to the target audience that you've got. Because unless you do that, you're not very important. We will not be bringing you as much traffic as you think we will. Right? So in order for us to bring you the traffic, you've got to give us content that is bringing you good target audience of your own industry. If you go to Google nowadays, what do you notice? There is less text and more visuals. Right? Which means that Google is bringing in the content, the value of the content within its own search engine, right? Which means that they are trying to get to the point where your search will be more visual, right? So nowadays, when you search for something, Google starts to show you images, videos, things, right? Because it wants to make your experience a better one. And as a result of that, Google is saying the same thing to its own users, right? And to its own customers that they've got, that they need to make sure that the actual content is relevant and the content is created for the demand that is being expressed on the web. And if the content that you're providing as a business is feeding on to some inquiries and some of the issues and problems and challenges that are expressed on the web, then Google will send you loads and loads of traffic. Right? As soon as someone has searched for something on the web, what Google spiders do, they go around the web and look at their service as well and try to find the very best source for you. Right? And then it delivers those search results in front of you, whether it's in a mobile or in a desktop. But again, nowadays, if the company that is trying to succeed in the marketplace, providing relevant content, which means that it's looking at what their customers are struggling with, right? And then it's creating content to serve those needs. For instance, like a DIY, like B&Qs, right, or home base, right? I mean, those are perfect examples of the companies that it's not just selling what they're selling, right? It's about educating their users. How many times you purchase something from one of these big players, but you couldn't really, assemble it or do a good job with it because you just struggle because that's not what you do on a day-to-day basis. Or how many times you've had some ideas, but you're stuck with them because you don't really know how to make them happen. But imagine if you had a company who helped you out to create that environment of yours at your home place with your own ideas. How about if they facilitated that whole challenge that you've got? And Google is saying, if you can do that, if you can help out your customers with the issues they've got, or ideas and the needs that they've got, we will send you traffic. So we will send you business. But if you don't do that, if you're only focused in providing a website that is well optimized for search engines, we will, but it's going to be limited. Because other guys like you, they are providing content that users online are finding useful. And we want to serve our clients online with the very best content we can. And so even though your website is fully, fantastically well optimized for mobile, you might not do so well unless you've got content that is being useful and is being used and is being shared online. And you see why now Google is doing something else. Google is showing results from social media in their search as well, right? Now, if one of my tweets was a successful one, right, and somebody searched something around my tweet, Google probably show my tweet in the search results. Or your video that you've created. If you end up creating a video that, for instance, goes viral or becomes popular, every time someone searches a keyword around your video, Google will show that to the audience. And even if that video is not a YouTube video, they'll still index that, which means save that into their servers around the world so that when somebody searches, they will show that video to them. For the first time, Google is heavily investing in social media and heavily investing in making sure that they index, which means they get a copy of what's happening in a day-to-day basis around the world. So when you search in Google, they will give you the right results. In addition to that, Google is getting smarter and smarter every single day, because now as you start searching for things, it starts recommending you things. Right? And the reason, and if you wonder how they do it, is because they work out behind the scene. What's the most relevant content that has been published around the keywords you're about to type? And as you're typing, they will start recommending you things around the content and the keyword that has been most popular around those inquiries you're making. Yeah? So you see all of that, it's being updated every month, right? And every month Google's search results and algorithms change. So as a business we need to be aware of that. So again, that's what SEO looks into, right? But again, in the past it was just about optimizing and having a website that is well built, everything works, images are displayed very well, links work very well, so then customers don't get lost when they're in there. That's not enough anymore. Now you've got to prove to Google and other search engines that you are being useful in other ways. So you're providing content through your blog posts to the need that is being expressed on the web. And then Google will say, okay, that's pretty clever. We will drive traffic to your website because We want to serve to our audience with the very best results we can. So ultimately, they will try and protect their customers. That's what they'll do. So, on-site search. The on-site search is a very simple feature in most of the web browsing experiences you go through specific brands of yours that you use. But of course, it's quite easy, it's quite simple, it's quite useful when you can yourself very quickly search for products or services of your choice from within the app. The reason why that's useful is because sometimes you struggle to identify products that you need without having to go and browse around things, right? Now, if you as a company have done a very good job, customers should be quite quickly finding their way around your app. But if you're struggling with it, then search can actually be quite a useful thing, okay? Now, simplifying the whole experience and making sure that we provide only key info. And that was one example from one of the apps that was quite successful when it comes to movie rating and support for the customers as well. But what you realize now, in a very good design apps, the white spaces are quite popular, which means that there is minimum information for the audience because, again, you need to start thinking about the sizes of these smartphones. Now you wonder why companies, large manufacturers of smartphones, are building bigger phones. Do you wonder why that's the case? It's because we want to have a better experience and bigger things and more things within that smart technology. So then we can get a better experience. And when you have a better experience, you keep using these things. Do you wonder why 7, 10, 15 years ago, before the iPhone, we barely managed to use those Palm mini computers in your pocket or HTC smartphones and so on? Because they didn't do a good job. They didn't give you a good experience. They were trying to do so many things at the same time and you couldn't do one thing well, right? So, plan your site well. One of the things that we liked when we did a bit of research last year on sort of customer experience was the Domino's app and the advertising they've done around it, just to show what one can do in terms of providing a very good experience within a mobile phone. And that's the example where a company does a really good job in introducing and using all those inbuilt features in the smartphone we talked about last time. Okay, now that's not what they've done within the app, obviously, but that just, I wanted to show you that because that just a creative way of using these smart technologies that are built right in these devices, so then you can provide a better experience. So you can see the multi-touch, you can see the sensors being used, you can see the graphics that are strong into these phones used. You can see everything put together very nicely, right? Okay, so tapping spaces, and as I said to you earlier, because these smart devices are always going to be limited as to how much you can show in those displays, because they are in general small. They are some of the bigger versions of smart devices you can get, but again, they're always going to be limited, and therefore being able to use those spaces, tapping spaces very well is quite important. Because sometimes, when you've got things so clumsy together, you always tap in the wrong thing, thinking you are doing okay, but then suddenly, boom, you went somewhere else. Because when that app was designed, they haven't thought very well about what we call tapping spaces, whereby you can't confuse this with that thing, right? Or whatever call to actions that you're providing within the app, right? And sometimes it can be very annoying when you're about to tap into complete the purchase and suddenly either sends you back somewhere else or sends you to another page that you didn't want to. Simply because there wasn't enough space in between things for you to use your finger. And sometimes when people have big fingers, it becomes quite hard, right? And then the links or the call to action are so near to each other that you really struggle. And sometimes, especially when you've got a mobile app, that you can't really zoom in or zoom out, you're stuck with it. You really need to try and tap into the bit where you want to be. So that ruins that experience, and therefore, for that reason, then the next action taken by the customer is to delete the app and try to find another one from your competitor so then they can do the job that they wanted to do. Again, customers are using these smartphones and these apps to get a job done, right? They might need to get to somewhere. So to get to that destination that they need, they use a smartphone to download the app, right? For instance, the train line, so then they can get to where they want to get to. So they are using these smartphones as a productivity tool, at least in most cases. Unless you're just surfing around and doing social, but nothing else. There is a problem with Flash, as you know this, and this was a big issue when Steve Jobs was alive, back in the time, where they went so much against Adobe and HTML, sort of Flash, and then they went for total HTML5 to use inbuilt Flash rather than use Adobe Flash Player. And of course, Flash is very difficult for smartphones, simply because it requires lots of memory in there to work out that piece of content. In addition to that, it's quite heavy, and it sucks out the battery as well, but in addition to that, it really works hard on the device. So that's why HTML5 in a way became standard for almost every mobile version of any website that you start to see nowadays. And again, it's simply because it does so many things right, and we start to look into the details. It provides location-based services, especially within the mobile version of the website. It can work offline, so you can actually have the mobile version work offline because of HTML5. If you wonder what HTML5 is, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a programming language that allows us to build websites and web applications. So in the near future, I think we will be in a situation where we're going to provide quite a decent experience from within mobile versions of websites, similar to what we're providing with the native apps or the apps that are downloaded to mobile phone. We're still not there yet, but there are companies providing a very, very good experience with the mobile versions of websites without the need for you to download an app. If you're going to use that company's service for just one time, what would you need an app? How many times you downloaded apps and you realize you're not going to need them ever again? Or you're going to need them for a few times and then you can just delete them because there's no need. Cross-platforms, HTML5 works cross-platform, which means that once you build up a website version for using HTML, it can actually work really well in tablets, in mobile and desktop as well. It's very supportive, reliable, and it is standardized. So it's being used across the web. Every single company nowadays is going with it. Now, reduced text entry. This is one of the challenges that came on and on from research, that obviously lots of companies get you to enter lots of text and details within the app when you start to do stuff, right? And that becomes quite hard, even though we've got these quite smart and clever keyboards doing quite nice, neat things. But we need to try and reduce that to the minimum, so then people can always just scroll down, pick up what they want, select and move to the next one, and then have that seamless experience throughout the customer journey instead of getting people to type things, right? And again, typing things, according to research, really doesn't just destroy the experience of the customer, but actually makes it very hard for them to get their job done, and people get annoyed by it quite a lot. We talked about branding consistency earlier, so if we look at this example on 60 seconds marketer, we start to get an idea that whether you are in the standard or the mobile app versions, you will know that's the company, that's the brand, because of the way it's been designed and the way it's been presented to you. But then think about this for a second. This is quite hard to use, because it's quite clumsy, quite busy, but this is quite easy. You can clearly see where are the places where you can go either to renew a membership or a downloaded book or something like that. So it goes, brand consistency is built throughout these key elements. Icons, colors, feel, and of course all of that brand essence that goes together. The whole idea is to not confuse customers. As soon as you start confusing your customers throughout their experience, you're pretty much kicking them away from your ecosystem and your own business, because they will not know that they are within your own ecosystem, because you haven't made that clear to them. So in other words, you've got to make the whole experience consistent throughout. Mobile subdomains, and as I said to you earlier, now companies, what they do, they try to provide subdomains that, again, just reduce that existing desktop experience into a small screen. Right? So in other words, behind the scene, there is a database and of course a platform that what it does is just reduces that thing into a smart device, the whole desktop website. In general, that becomes a bit of a problem, because you've got to scroll down to find things you want to find, because it pretty much squeezes this in, and it just reorders things around, and it makes them all horizontal, sometimes it's all vertical, so you've got to scroll around to be able to find information you want. So in general, it's quite a difficult experience, right? So for the companies to really succeed and do exceptionally well, they've got to build up a mobile presence with the mobile thinking hat on, because a user experience with a smartphone is very different from the desktop experience, from the surrounding to where you're sitting to what you're doing and everything else. With a mobile phone, you're almost on the go all the time, so you've got to make that experience really easy, very straightforward. And the mobile phone, again, is a different animal altogether. Right? So that's why those companies who've done that, done pretty successfully as well. So again, pop-up windows keep coming along on the research when it comes to the mobile presence, mobile devices, has to be a really bad idea. Because if you do that, if you consistently show pop-up windows into your mobile application, that really kills that experience for the customer, because it's really hard to close things around and find that opportunity where you can do it. And of course, now screens are slightly better, displays are slightly better, they are bigger, but it becomes quite hard and quite difficult. A lot of full site visits as well. Now, research shows that sometimes you just find difficult to find things using the actual mobile version of the website. So providing a link to the full desktop website can be useful. Now sometimes you might have noticed in your own experience that you can't just get yourself around the mobile presence, so you want to try and find the desktop version of the website, so then you can access using a mobile phone. Not the best experience, but you know that you can get to the right place. Okay? Sometimes this can be the case with mobile banking if you don't download an app, or it can be an issue with paying utility bills and things like that. Because sometimes when they redesign their services for mobile app, they seem to forget some of the key things to be implemented in mobile app. So then, to get the job done, you really need to go and download, well, not just download, but actually access the desktop website to get the job done. So for instance, Geek Squad offers very clearly, in this case, a link where it offers you a chance to go to the full website. Again, it's not something that all the users will go through, but if you're struggling to find your way around the actual mobile site, they should give you a chance to do that. So, conclusions. One of the key things is to think about customer experience across channels. So remember, what we are seeing today is connected devices through connected services 24/7. So we're not on the phones, we've got a lot on the phones, but we're not 24/7 on the phone. At least I hope we're not 24/7. You know, we're sometimes in tablets, sometimes in desktops, right? Sometimes it's wearable devices. So we need to be able to think about how we connect those services. And so single customer experience across channels is really important. That is done through brand consistency, but that also done through experience and customer journey we talked about. In addition to that, to be able to offer that, we need to allow safe searches, right? We need to allow this to all the users to save the search results that they have been through, or save products or services into their own account. So when they switch from wearables to like smartphones or tablets, they can pick up that journey from that moment on anytime they want. Otherwise, they have to go back from the beginning, do all those things again, and then really struggle. The other one is have clear call to actions. Now, the customer journey told us very clearly the importance of call to actions. And it's really essential on smartphones as well, especially knowing how difficult and challenging it can be. So being able to have very clear call to actions where we move customers from one place to another, and we're moving them throughout the customer journey experience and throughout that customer checkout experience if they're about to buy something, is really essential. Again, call to actions really make it very clear, very easy, very straightforward to use and interact with the brand. Call to actions are calling us to take an action, to do something, to move from one stage to another into that customer journey. And moving from one stage to another in a smartphone is really essential. Because if you get lost on the way through the customer experience, then you'll probably forget about that business altogether anyway. The next one is making sure that whatever you search and you add things into the basket can be accessed from any other device that you're in. Whether it's in the same ecosystem, whether it's an Android, Apple, whatever it is, we need to be able to have access to it at any time. We need to keep forms short. In general, when you start to see in most companies' websites, mobile websites, you start to see that the forms are quite long. You've got to add this, and then add that, and then add this. And then through this smartphone, it becomes quite hard. And in general, that experience just doesn't allow us to do other bits and pieces that might be relevant around shopping, because it takes all our time to input information into these forms. So keeping forms short, it becomes really, really essential. Checkboxes, lists, and scroll menus clearly show to be quite useful add-ons to almost every mobile presence. So scrolling down, selecting, ticking boxes, it can be quite useful. In general, it actually improves experiences of ours that we've got with the company. And in addition to that, it just makes that experience very smooth, very straightforward. And sometimes some companies provide such a good experience, so then you talk about it with all your friends, with all your family. And before you realize, every single one of the people you know has got exactly the same application. And then they're probably becoming a customer of that company as well. And then the other bit, of course, is the implement click to call, right? So sometimes you see mobile phones implemented into the actual mobile applications or mobile site versions, but you cannot just tap and call it. You have to go select it all, copy, and then go to your app, and then paste, and then it shows all these weird numbers around, and then you've got to go it again, and then it just becomes really hard, and then you won't just call them at all. And that means business again, because maybe you were about to call because you were about to complete a purchase. But nowadays, you've got to make it very simple, so then actually have a call tag and just say call, and then the number is hidden behind that link. So then it just works with your phone, you just call and then boom, gives you a chance to call that company instead of having to go and select the number and so on. So it's quite an important element to keep in mind. And you will pick this up as you do the reading as well. Now, Mobile Congress in Barcelona, it runs every year. Some of the key highlights from last year were the following. There were the open source, mobile operating systems that are growing super fast, and those include Ubuntu, Firefox OS, and more. It is part of your research to look into 2016 Mobile Congress as well. One of the largest conferences in the world when it comes to mobile phone. Whatever happens in the mobile world, it will be first introduced in the Mobile Congress. So your research is to go out and find what's been happening in the Mobile Congress in Barcelona 2016. Samsung and Nokia and Sony and LG and BlackBerry all launched different things last year, but it seemed like that this year HTC, LG and Samsung are somehow leading the trend with their new devices. But of course there's a lot more to it. There's Internet of Things, and there's smartphones, wearables, virtual reality, and there's a lot more that you can learn from it. You've got to really get a fantastic understanding what has happened in there. Because you've got to be on top of these things, because they will be standard across the industries. So you don't really have a choice to learn about it or not. You've got to get a really good understanding, and when you can, try to get hands-on things, whether they're applications or operating systems or other things that will help you with your approach. Yeah? And they'll help you with your knowledge. You've got to keep reading and be on top of things all the time. And the conference will help you just do that. Nowadays, thanks to all the social media, you can actually get a very good understanding of everything that has happened so far in there, simply because everything is being shared. You don't have to be physically there. Of course, being physically there is quite good because you can interact with people, but to be able to learn what has happened so far and be on top of the game when it comes to the mobile tech, that's the place to be. And again, the hashtag is MWC 2016 for this year. Okay?